It is a new day. It's a new dawn, and it's a new life, and I'm feeling good. On April the 3rd, 1983, I was heavily pregnant with my first child. We were in the other auditorium, and it was in the round, and I was leading praise and worship. And I got off the stage, and I went and sat on a couch. Pastor Theo was preaching his message, and then just at the end of the message, he was doing his altar call. You won't believe what happened. My waters broke right on the couch. And so I said to Pastor Theo, please, I think we've got to go to the hospital. Now, do you know what Pastor Theo said to me? He said, Bev, I'm just doing the altar call. I've got one more service to do because this is the first service. And so what we're going to do is I would like to perhaps teach the next service. And then when we finish that, we can go to the hospital. Pastor La Salette, I said, honey, I've never had a baby before. I think we've just got to go to the hospital. And so, we went to the hospital, and I was lying on the bed, and every woman who's had a baby, you know what it's like when those labor pains come. Can you remember? It comes fast and furious. I didn't know about epidurals in those days, otherwise I would have said, bring it on, bring it on. But nevertheless, I was a woman of faith, trusting God for a pain-free birth. It didn't work for me. Nevertheless, I was in labor and had these pains. And then suddenly I decided I don't want to do this anymore. So I said to Pastor Thea, honey, I've finished. I've decided I don't want to do this thing about having a baby anymore. I don't want the pain. Why don't you and I just get out? I'll get out of bed. Let's just leave the hospital and go home. But how many of us women know there's no turning back? Once the baby starts coming down that birth canal, the doctor said to me, push, push, push. And they weren't saying, pray until something happens, pray until something happens, pray until something happens. They just said, push, the baby's coming. And it wasn't long before the baby, my first little baby, was in my arms. And then Pastor Theo, he held Natalie first. And then you know what it's like, hey ladies, you forget about the pain. You forget about the sweat. You forget about the drama. You forget about the tears, because in your arms you have new life. And it brings you such joy. But sometimes in life, the same principle applies. The greatest difficulties seem to come right before the birth of a new dawn, a new day, a new opportunity, or a new victory. I want you to know tonight that our victory babies are on the way in Jesus' name. There's no turning back, family. We have no choice but to push forward in spite of all the pain we're going through. And then we will expect new life to appear. No matter how hard it may seem, no matter how dim the dream might be, we must know that sometimes our worst night is followed by our greatest day if we don't give up. The moment right before a breakthrough is often a very dark one. Sometimes even a pitch black one. Perhaps it's lonely. Perhaps it's painful. And so it was for Edmund Hillary. Before the night he would attempt to climb Mount Everest. It was dark. It was pitch black that night. Hold on to your bags. Hold on to your bags. This is not a power failure. The physical challenge alone was overwhelming that night. He was camped at an elevation of 25,800 feet. His tent was pounded by the wind, which sounded like the roar of 1,000 tigers. He breathed with the help of an oxygen tank because the air was so thin. His air mattress had deflated. His hip froze when it came in contact with the ice. He couldn't sleep. He was so exhausted. And this all took place in absolute darkness. Maybe what was worse than the physical discomfort was a psychological war that he was facing. He wrote later that night that he was lonely, he was afraid, he even doubted himself. He tormented himself with the question, why am I trying to climb this Mount Everest? It was surely one of the worst nights of his life. But his worst night was to be followed by his greatest day. May the 29th, 1953, marks the conquering of Mount Everest. Now for Hillary, it was quite a comeback, you see, because the year before, in 1952, he tried to climb that mountain and he did not conquer it. He and 15 others tried, but they failed. But he was armed the next year with a spirit of comeback. He said, I'm not going to allow this mountain in my life to conquer me, but I am going to conquer the mountain. And so he then ascended up and he conquered the mountain. Many would follow and many would conquer the mountain, but Sir Hilary and his faithful aide would always be the first ones to conquer the mountain. But Hilary said in climbing the mountain, it was not the mountain he conquered, but he conquered himself. And so it is with every comeback. We will all fail on our way to success. If Sir Hilary could get the courage, family, to face his mountain and conquer it, how much more can't we, who have Christ in us, the hope of glory, conquer the mountains and the giants of life? Romans 8:31 says, if God is for us, tell me, who can be against us? The difficulties in life can't be against us. The setbacks in life can't come against us. Because God is with us and He's helping us, and we will succeed and we will win in life. We will get to the top of our mountain. We can surely say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Say that, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I heard a story once about an old cowboy who worked on the cattle ranches where the storms took heavy tolls on the cattle. There was a certain breed of cattle that when the storms came and the temperatures went below freezing, they would put their back towards a storm and they would slowly go down until they found the boundary fence of the ranch. There they would huddle together, and at the end of the storm, you would find that many of those cattle had died. But there was another breed of cattle called the Hereford. They had a different approach to the icy onslaught. They faced the adversity head on. They looked at the icy storm as it came. They bowed their head. They stood shoulder to shoulder, and they put their head down, and they just waited until the icy storm had blown over, even though they were covered with snow. And the old rancher said, the cowboy said, the greatest lesson that I learned while working on the prairies is you just gotta meet adversity head on and face life storms. What an incredible lesson. Every human being under the sound of my voice, we must decide again and again and again whether we are going to meet fearsome difficulties head on, or are we going to retract? Are we going to hide? Are we going to slip in depression? Every person under the sound of my voice, we are all going to face our Gethsemanes one day. What is a Gethsemane? It's a time, perhaps a dark time in our lives, a discouraging time in our lives, a difficult time in our lives. We all face times in life where we feel so tough. It's so tough, it's rough. I wonder if I'm going to make it. Am I going to see the day through? But we've got to remember this, family, that a winner will always find something good in defeat. He will learn from it and he will put it behind him. Because you see, anybody can quit. It's the easiest road to take. but life rewards the person who perseveres in Jesus' name.
Thank you for watching Dr. Bev's YouTube channel. We will continue to offer dynamic and uplifting highlights from Dr. Bev's messages. Please take the time to like and share the videos. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Keep watching the Dr. Beverly Wolmarans YouTube channel.